Every other primate gives birth to an infant that can cling to its mother within hours. Human babies can't even hold their own head up for 3 months. Scientists spent decades blaming this on our hips. They were wrong. The real answer is far stranger, and it starts with your grandmother. A foal stands within an hour of birth. A baby chimp grips its mother and rides her back within days. But a human newborn? It can't focus its eyes past 18 inches. It can't regulate its own temperature. It cannot survive a single day alone. For years, textbooks gave us one answer: the birth canal. Human hips narrowed when we stood upright, so babies had to be born early before their heads got too big to pass through. That explanation is still in classrooms today, and it is at best half the story. In 2012, a team of researchers published a paper in PNAS that quietly rewrote what we thought we knew. And when you follow the evidence from there, through the Tanzanian savanna, through evolutionary modeling, through the neuroscience of newborn eyes, you end up somewhere nobody expects. You end up at a 60-year-old woman digging tubers out of the ground. Here's what the 2012 PNAS study found. Human gestation doesn't end because the baby is done developing. It ends because the mother runs out of fuel. By the third trimester, a pregnant woman is running her metabolism at roughly twice her resting baseline. That is close to the biological ceiling, the same upper limit seen in endurance athletes and migrating birds. She literally cannot sustain the pregnancy any longer. So the baby is expelled still raw, still unfinished, with 40% of its eventual brain growth still ahead of it. Researchers called this the EGG hypothesis, energetics of gestation and growth. And what it means is that human brain evolution didn't just face a physical constraint, it faced an energy constraint. The solution evolution landed on was radical: outsource the most expensive phase of brain development to the group. But who in the group? And why would anyone sign up for that? In the 1980s and 90s, anthropologist Kristen Hawkes and her team spent years living alongside the Hadza, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer populations on Earth in northern Tanzania. They were studying mothers, but what kept catching their eye was the grandmothers. Here's what the data showed. When a Hadza mother had a nursing newborn, her older children's weight gain decoupled from her own foraging output. She was too busy feeding the infant. Those older kids should have suffered, but they didn't, because grandmother showed up. Grandmothers, specifically postmenopausal women with no infants of their own, were digging tubers, processing food, and channeling calories directly into grandchildren. And when researchers mapped the data, the correlation was striking. Grandchild survival improved measurably when a living grandmother was present. Hawkes proposed something that sounded almost too elegant: human longevity. Specifically, the long postmenopausal lifespan, unique to our species, evolved because grandmothers who kept helping passed on more of their genes through their grandchildren. Computer simulations tested this. Starting from ape-like baselines, models showed that effective grandmothering alone could drive the evolution of extended post-reproductive lifespans across generations. Chimpanzees almost never survive past menopause. Human women routinely live 30 to 40 years beyond it. That gap is not accidental. That gap is grandma's return on investment. Helplessness was not a bug. It was a feature. Now here's where it gets strange, and this is the part most videos never reach. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy spent decades asking a different question. If babies are this vulnerable, why did evolution make them more helpless over time, not less? Her answer was because helplessness recruits investment. A helpless infant that cannot survive alone forces the people around it to engage, to bond, to commit, and the more caregivers who bond, the higher the infant's chance of survival. Look at a newborn's eyes. They can only focus at about 18 inches, exactly the distance to the face of whoever is holding them. That's not a limitation. That's a targeting system. It forces intimate face-to-face engagement with whoever picks the baby up, wiring attachment not just to one mother, but to a network. Hardy's core argument: babies evolved to be connoisseurs of commitment. They are exquisitely sensitive to who is paying attention, who is available, who can be trusted. This early social intelligence, this reading of multiple caregivers, is likely the root of human empathy, theory of mind, and emotional complexity. The village didn't just help babies survive, the village built the human brain. Cooperative breeding likely came before big brains, not after. The helplessness made the village necessary. The village made the intelligence possible. Pull all of this together, and a picture emerges. Human reproduction is not designed for a nuclear family. It never was. It is designed for a multi-generational cooperative economy where post-menopausal grandmothers subsidize daughters' fertility, provision-wean children, and buffer the gap between births. The short interbirth intervals that make humans unique among great apes, having another baby every 3 years instead of every 5 or 6, are only possible because someone else is feeding the last one. Historically, that someone was grandmother. Even the shift to extractive foraging deep underground tubers that small children physically cannot dig created a niche that elderly women filled perfectly. Grandmothers weren't peripheral. They were load-bearing infrastructure, the deliberate helplessness of human infants, the extended dependency of human childhood, the uniquely long post-reproductive lifespan, the cooperative social brain. These are not separate evolutionary stories. They are one story, and it is a story written for a village. We inherited a system and abandoned the parts that made it work. Modern Western parenting is one of the strangest experiments in human history, and we barely notice it. 2 adults, sometimes 1, an infant whose nervous system evolved to be held, monitored, and loved by a rotating cast of invested caregivers, a grandmother who lives in a different city, a community that doesn't knock on the door. Postpartum anxiety, maternal depletion, children struggling to regulate emotions, these are not personal failures. They are evolutionary mismatches. We removed the village and kept the baby that was designed for it. Hardy wrote that ancestral babies were never meant to be raised by 1 or 2 isolated adults. The data from the Hadza, from metabolic studies, from developmental neuroscience, all of it points in the same direction. The baby is helpless on purpose. The mother was never supposed to do this alone. And the most important person in the room was always the grandmother. We just forgot to invite her.